We have a quorum, and we would have any elected officials in the audience, if you'd please stand to be recognized. Seeing none, I will ask Dr. DePriest, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we do not have a student report tonight, so we will move right into awards and recognitions. Mr. Majors.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Dr. Register, and board members. This past November, Nashville had the opportunity to host or to work as the host district for the National Association of Black School Educators Conference here in Nashville. The conference traditionally brings over 3,000 educators to our city, and this year the conference was a tremendous success. I would like to recognize one person that could be with us tonight, Ms. Virginia Pupo-Walker and Ms. Lorraine Stallworth, who's recovering from knee surgery. So Ms. Walker, if you could come to the front. Ms. Walker and Ms. Stallworth received a letter of commendation from Ms. Carrie Jasper, the Director of Outreach and for Parent and Families from the Office of Communications and Outreach for the U.S. Department of Education. In the commendation, she states that the efforts of Metro Nashville Public Schools help to further Secretary Arnie Duncan's vision for engaging families to share a vision surrounding supporting the learning process for their children. So I'd like to issue a letter of commendation and a certificate to Ms. Virginia Pupo-Walker and Ms. Lorraine Stallworth, again, who could not be with us. And it states, from Metro Nashville Board of Education honors Virginia Pupo-Walker for your commitment to excellence and outstanding service in support of the National Alliance of Black School Educators Conference Fall 2012. Your efforts have helped to further the goal of increasing family engagement in our schools. Recognized the 8th day of January 2013.
Ms. Brown?
Good evening. I'm very excited to be here with a very special recognition. We have with us tonight Mr. Mark Young and Mr. Dave Brissels from the local Firefighters Union IAFF 140. They did a wonderful thing for our students right before the winter break. Two of our schools, Glenview Elementary and Tusculum Elementary, received a generous donation of coats, a brand new coat for every student in the school. It amounted to about 1,400 coats for our children. Everyone got one. They were different sizes, different colors. They got to choose what they liked, and both schools have provided thank you notes to the IAFF. But I wanted to share one that I just thought I would read real quickly that I'm going to be giving to them this evening. Dear firefighters, thank you for the coats. They keep us warm during winter, and you got us all of our favorite colors. And it's not just the coats we're thankful for. Thank you for putting out fires. Come back soon. And I thought that was really special. So if I could ask Mr. Young and Mr. Brissels to come forward. And I don't see, unless I'm overlooking them, I don't see Miss Russell and Miss McMahon, who are the principals. They wanted to be here this evening, and I think they must have gotten held up. But let me read this certificate, and then we'd like to get a picture. And I think Mr. Young has a couple of words he'd like to say. So this is a certificate of appreciation honoring Mr. Young and the members of the IAFF Local 140 for their generosity to the students at Glenview and Tusculum Elementary Schools, who each received a new winter coat through a partnership with Operation Warm and the Firefighters Coats for Kids Foundation. The IAFF Local 140 presented approximately 1,400 new coats as part of their goal to ensure that every child in Nashville has a warm winter coat for the winter. So we really appreciate their generosity. Yeah. Mr. Young?
Thank you, Olivia. Dr. Register, members of the board, something that this day was very special for us. But something that was very special that touched me was these children. I was so amazed. The principals and the school teachers at both of these schools need to be applauded. These were the most, the children, they were just so thankful. They were so well-mannered. They come into the area and they stood there until a firefighter came and got them and took them to the area to pick the coat out. They got their coat. Each and every one of them said, "Thank you." They get back in line with their teacher, with their group. It was amazing. It was simply amazing. I expected a total nightmare. This was unbelievable. So the principals and the teachers of these two schools, somebody has got to say, you've done a great job. Thank you.
Ms. Russell's come in, so I'm going to ask her to come up and join us in this picture.
I'll take a picture. I'm in the back. I'm in the back. That's the important person. One more. Great, thank you. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing more of you.
Thank you.
I think we need to give another round of applause. That is absolutely amazing. We do not have anyone scheduled for public participation tonight, so we will move directly into governance issues. Madam Vice Chair.
The consent agenda is as follows. 1A, approval of minutes 12/11/12 regular meeting. B, designer supplement number 2 for Hermitage Elementary School additions and renovations, Gobble Hayes Partners, Inc., L-2428. C, designer supplement number 2 for Cane Ridge Elementary School, EOA Architects, L-2530. Excuse me. D, designer supplement number 2 for Chadwell Elementary School additions and renovations, Southeast Ventures, L-2436. E, change order number 1 for Pearlcone High School pool renovations, Edwards Constructions, M-476. F, awarding of bids and contracts. Number 1, Zaner Blaser, Inc. 2, Developmental Studies Center. 3, Northeast Foundation for Children. 4, Ripple Effects, Inc. 5, School Connect, LLC. 6, Texas Instruments. 7, Taylor Music, Inc. 8, Carlene Rees. 9, Flow Zone Services, Inc. 10, Sam Swope Auto Group. 11, Sam Swope Auto Group. 12, Town and Country Ford. 13, Dodge of Columbia. 14, Dodge of Columbia. 15, Golden Circle Ford. 16, Neely Cobble Company. 17, Neely Cobble Company. 18, CDW Government. Madam Chair, I recommend approval of the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. G, recommended approval of request for a compulsory attendance waiver. I'm sorry, that's part of the consent agenda. Also, okay, that's part of the consent agenda. So we will add that as the approval. Number 2, recommended approval of proposed 2013-2019 capital improvement budget. Mr. Hayes.
Thank you. This evening, the capital improvement committee met and recommended to this board that we approve the the capital budget as presented this evening. There are approximately $80 million in changes since our work session that some folks here may have seen, the public may have seen just over a month ago. This board challenged, or I guess asked staff to revisit years 2, 3, 4, and 5. And particularly the way the county is growing, we saw in the last committee meeting maps that outline the growth, and although we've been acutely focused on year 1 because that's the money that we'd like to get as soon as possible if we are going to receive funding, and that's frankly what council and the mayor's office have, you know, they're most interested in year 1, but I think that we sell ourselves short, and certainly our constituents short, if we don't accurately present the long-term need. So what you'll see in that are changes from the last capital improvement budget meeting, additional schools basically mostly in the Overton cluster. A new school in the new elementary school in the Overton cluster for $17.4 million. Another elementary school in year 3. Another elementary school in year 4 in the Tusculum area budgeted around $17.8 million. A new elementary school in the Hillwood cluster for $17.8 million in year 4 and year 5. Another middle school in the Overton cluster for $20 million, and then some additions to Percy Priest, Neely's Bend, and Glenview. So there have been some pretty significant changes, and I certainly thank the administration and staff for trying to be accurate with our long-range projections. I think that's very useful for council, planning, and mayor's office for us to reflect as accurately as possible what the long-term growth needs are. So with that, I'd like to ask if someone can make a motion so that we can discuss this for approval. It was unanimously approved this evening. So is there a motion to approve the proposed 2013-19 capital improvement budget?
So moved.
Thank you.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion?
Any more discussion tonight? If
No
there's
discussion?
no additional discussion outside of committee, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. Motion passes, sorry. Recommended approval of Music Makes Us resolution. Ms. Shepherd.
A note of privilege. It gives me great pleasure to read this resolution. I serve as a representative from the board on the Music Makes Us Advisory Council, but more importantly, as a former parent of band students, I have a long history and a lot of fond memories of my children being in the band at McGavick High School, and I know how important music education is to the total education of every student. So here goes. Whereas Metro Nashville Public Schools is committed to providing all students with the foundation of knowledge, skills, and character needed to excel in higher education, work, life, and whereas Metro Schools has embraced the Common Core standards to equip students with 21st century skills such as critical thinking, communication, collaboration, and creativity, and whereas multiple research studies make clear that students who participate in a rigorous, sequential, standard-based visual and performing arts education develop the ability to innovate, communicate, and collaborate, and whereas such music education in schools improves test scores, increases graduation rates, and helps close achievement gaps among student groups, and whereas research shows music enhances cognitive development in many areas, including verbal skills and social emotional learning, and whereas research indicates low-income students with in-depth music and arts involvement earn better grades, are more likely to attend college, develop greater self-esteem, and are more engaged in civic affairs, and whereas Metro Schools is committed to increasing parent and community engagement in schools in support of student learning, and whereas student performance and music events bring school, staff, and families together in engaging community-centered school environments, and whereas the Board of Education and the Director of Schools are committed to ensuring all students are prepared to compete for jobs in the local music and creative economy. And whereas with more than 80 record labels, 130 music publishers, 180 recording art studios, and some 5,000 working union musicians, Nashville is known as Music City, with the music industry's total economic impact in Middle Tennessee at $6.4 billion per year, providing 54,000 jobs, according to a 2006 study. And whereas music performance, composition, distribution, promotion, production, training, education, artist rights groups, live music venues, and equipment repair and production jobs require mastery of 21st century skills. And whereas almost 60% of Metro School students are enrolled in music classes, including all elementary school students, 88% of middle school students, and 29% of high school students, and this year the district is investing $13 million for more than 200 staff. And whereas Music Makes Us is a public-private partnership with Metro Schools, the Mayor's Office and the music community supports student engagement and achievement through high-quality music education with both a traditional music curriculum and a contemporary curriculum that uses technologies and reflects a diverse musical landscape. And whereas the Mayor's Office, private philanthropy, and nonprofit music and arts advocacy organizations, musicians, parents, higher education, and teachers are critical to increasing the availability, quality, and vitality of music education and music in Metro Schools. Now therefore be resolved that to ensure access to quality music education and meet achievement goals, the Board of Education will affirm music education as an essential component of every student's education. Resolved further, within the next 3 years, all kindergarten through grade 12 students in Metro Schools will have opportunities to participate in high-quality music instruction that is standards-based, sequential, taught by highly qualified music educators and enhanced by a network of music professionals, music industry, and community-based organizations from the Nashville community. Resolved further, to have a world-class music education program in Metro Schools will emerge more students in music, reflect our diverse community, strengthen legacy programs in chorus, band, and orchestra, and excite students around new and emerging music technologies. Resolved further, non-traditional music courses will be offered in every cluster based on student population, administrative support, and availability of instructors and resources with every middle and high school, eventually having at least one non-traditional music pathway, and all schools will have partnerships with community-based organizations. Resolved further, Music Makes Us will foster high expectations and reputation for excellence in music education using clearly defined standards and accountability measures to ensure equitable access to a world-class music program. This resolution shall take effect immediately for the benefit of all students in Metro Nashville Public Schools.
Thank you, Ms. Shepherd. Is there a motion to approve? Second?
Second.
Oh, we're all over this. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Dr. Register.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's my pleasure now to introduce Dr. Lori Shell, who's Director of Music Makes Us, who has a special guest with her to say a few words about the Music Makes Us program and the great opportunities that we have here in metropolitan Davidson County to implement the best music education program in the world.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Register, and thank you, Mrs. Shepherd, for your fine reading. It's great to hear that out loud. Madam Chair and the Board, I want to express my appreciation for your actions today in approving this resolution. And I wish to recognize and welcome some of our music students and teachers who are with us tonight. Would you stand, the music students and teachers from McGavock, MLK, and Overton. In a time of great challenges in public education, it takes extraordinary leadership to recognize that music and the arts are indeed essential to every child's education for all the reasons that we heard in the resolution. Music programs around the country have been struggling, particularly those in urban environments with large populations of high-poverty students. Not so in Music City, not so in Metro Nashville Public Schools. Your commitment to and investment in Music Makes Us, to music education, enables us to fulfill our pledge to our students to guide them to excellence, not only in music, but also in higher education, work, and life. This commitment sets our schools apart from others and offers us the opportunity to lead from a position of creativity, of innovation, and strength. Essential to the success of this initiative is our partnership with the music community. And Nancy Shapiro, Senior Vice President of Member Services at the Grammy Awards, the Recording Academy, has been a champion of this cause for many years. She was appointed by Mayor Carl Dean to the Music City Music Council, where the vision for this initiative was born, and serves as the chair of the Music Makes Us Advisory Council currently. A consummate advocate for music education, Nancy's continuing involvement is emblematic of the quality of leadership that carries this partnership forward. Nancy?
Thank you. My heart's pounding not because I'm nervous to address you, but because this is really a moment in time that I will treasure and remember. And it's a moment in time that not many school boards and cities take to recognize the importance of music education for our students. Often when I'm addressing a group of people, I ask who plays an instrument, and a few people raise their hand. And then I ask how many people wish you played an instrument, and the rest of the people raise their hand. And so now we are giving this opportunity that we wish we had for ourselves to our students. And I'm really grateful for your support. So I wish to extend my gratitude to Dr. Register, Mayor Dean, the Board of Education for this far-reaching act. I can tell you that cities all over the country are asking how we're doing it. So I applaud you for your support. I am here on behalf of the entire music community in Nashville, representing an industry that is vital to Nashville and essential to the success of this program. Music Makes Us was initially conceived as a public-private partnership among the mayor's office, the school district, and the music community. We are so pleased to witness the initial accomplishments and see this vision become a reality. We continue to believe that the ultimate success of Music Makes Us rests in our ability to have strong, effective leaders who value music education, an alignment of interests among city, school district, and the music community, community partnerships that invest in and take action on behalf of music education, and a city that attracts music professionals as a place to call home. Thank you for your leadership and your commitment to music education. On behalf of the Grammy Awards and the Grammy Foundation and the Recording Academy, we salute you for your vision and your commitment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We definitely appreciate your kind comments. We will move to the director's report. Dr. Register.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, members of the audience. I've got 3 issues that I wish to bring to you tonight. The first is the Transformational Leadership Group report on performance of students with special needs, and I'll call on Debbie McAdams, who is Executive Director for Exceptional Children's Programs, and also recognize Dr. Linda DePriest, Assistant Superintendent for School Support Services, to do the presentation. Debbie, we'll turn it over to you.
Come on.
Good evening. I heard you say that we had issues, so I sat back down. I didn't know that I was starting yet. So, good evening, Dr. Register, Madam Chair, and members of the board. Thank you for this opportunity to present to you tonight on the performance of students with special needs. We have 3 focus areas that we will be discussing tonight: inclusion and achievement of students with disabilities. At this point, I want to publicly recognize our Mayor's Advisory Council and our EFAC, which is our Exceptional Ed Family Advisory Council, because they have really helped our district move towards more inclusive practices. We also will be speaking on the gifted learner model and our district-wide social and emotional learning. I'm going to start speaking about inclusive education. It's important to note that we serve all students starting at age 3 through their 21st birthday in special education. We have started this transformational change for inclusive education in 2009-2010. Prior to that year, in our middle schools, our students with disabilities may have had to attend a different school outside of their school of choice or school of zone, because we didn't offer special education services at every middle school. So during the 2009-2010 school year, all of our rising 5th graders attended their school of zone or choice. Huge transformational change for our district. During that year, we realized we needed to roll out more professional learning for our gen ed teachers and our special education teachers. So we took that year to train a tremendous amount of teachers. We also gave our schools specific targets. We still had schools at that time that had self-contained lunches, self-contained related arts classes for our students with disabilities, and lockers that may have been in a different part of the buildings. We need to change that. During 2011-2012, we concentrated on elementary. We still had cluster sites in our elementary schools. So if I had a student with a disability who was zoned for Harpeth Valley, they were bused to Gower Elementary to access special education services. So during 2011-2012, all of our rising kindergartners attended their school of zone or choice. It was an incredible opportunity for all our students, and when you walked into kindergarten classrooms and saw our students with disabilities, it just warmed your heart. It's important as we move towards inclusive education, it's not just about having the students attend their school of zone or school of choice, it's making sure that they are meaningfully included in the gen ed environment. So along with the kindergarten integration, we made sure that our students with disabilities were part of that gen ed kindergarten homeroom. They had a desk in that homeroom. They had a locker in that homeroom. They participated in the kindergarten field trips. This past school year, we concentrated on kindergarten, 1st and 2nd, and then 5th and 6th grade. Those students were already in their school of zone or school of choice, and now we really need to push to make sure that they are in that general education classroom. Next year, we'll be working with high schools and working with our 9th graders to make sure our 9th graders, students with disabilities, are part of the 9th grade academy and in the general education classrooms. We currently are serving 9,849 students, 9,894 students with disabilities, and that's ages 3 through 21. I want to point out that back in June 2011, we had 89% of our students that were in their school of zone or choice. This year, we pulled this data just this week, and we have 95% of our students that are in their school of zone or choice, which is great. Inclusive education. We have a state report card for special education, just like the district does, but it's specific to special education, and there's a variety of different indicators. This is indicator 5, and it is called least restrictive environment, and it's the percentage of students with disabilities that are in the gen ed environment for 80% or more of the day. This is really how we're targeting our growth. The state just released these data today for the 2011-2012 school year, and we are at 57.57% of students with disabilities in the gen ed environment for 80% or more of the day. So we are making progress towards that. In addition to inclusive education, we all know, and the research clearly tells us, that in order for academic achievement to occur with our students with disabilities, they need to be in the gen ed classroom. We are seeing academic achievement, but we are not closing those gap closures. We still have a huge gap between our students with disabilities and our students without disabilities. This is data from 2011 and 2012. You can see in the area of math for grades 3 through 8, We made progress, same with reading for grades 3 through 8, Algebra 1, and also English 2. The purple bar represents the 2012 state achievement data for students with disabilities. So what are we doing to move forward? We want to continue with our transformational change for inclusive education and make sure that our students are in the least restrictive environment, that they are part of our general education. It is very clear in the research that these 4 components need to be present in a school district in order to raise our achievement. We are continuing to roll out professional learning. We realized when we started diving into our Indicator 5 data that many of our special education teachers were not writing their service pages correctly. Okay, and that Indicator 5 data is taken directly from our IEPs. So we rolled out professional development starting in August 2012 that are teaching our teachers how to correctly write our services into our IEPs and also how to guide that conversation in an IEP meeting. It's called our least restrictive environment protocol. So we're giving them the tools they need to have conversations in those IEP meetings about how we can best meet the child's needs in a general education environment. What supports does that child need to be successful in general education? We also have to make sure that specially designed instruction is occurring for our students with disabilities, that they have access to the Common Core, and that we have time for a collaboration between special ed and general education teachers. This is also part of our strategic plan that our district is working on. In addition for professional learning for our special education teachers, we also are providing professional development for our gen ed teachers. We need to make sure that they also have the skills to make sure they can meet the needs of all of our learners. What are the challenges? Obviously, building the capacity of staff. We have schools that in 2011, 2012, they never had students with disabilities, such as autism or intellectual disabilities, walk into their school buildings before. So we need to make sure that everybody in that school building has the capacity to work with all children. I also wanted to point out that we currently have the MOS assessment, which is the Modified Academic Achievement Standards Assessment. This is an assessment we can use for our students with disabilities. When PARCC is rolled out, the MOS assessment will no longer exist, and this is nationwide. This year, the state of Tennessee has determined that any child who took the MOS last school year and scored proficient on reading and math, they are no longer eligible to take the MOS. So that will affect our academic achievement scores. Okay, but what we need to do is make sure those students that will be taking the TCAP get the appropriate accommodations and modifications that they need. Obviously, when we're changing a culture in a school district, specifically with students with disabilities, it takes time. All right, we're going from a school district that had very categorical, self-contained settings for our students with disabilities. We didn't offer services in every school, and we're changing that. Okay, so now I'm going to put on a different hat, and we're going to talk about gifted services. Okay. We currently have over 3,800 students that are currently accessing Encore services, which is our gifted pull-out program for grades pre-K through 8. We were very fortunate that Race to the Top funded a gifted audit that looked at actually just our K through 8 gifted services. And you guys should all have a copy of the audit report with you. They went into over 67 classrooms. They had 20 focus groups. They met with numerous people, individuals, and executive staff. That we had over 500 survey questionnaires, and they also did a documented review of our Encore curriculum units, policy documents, communication, staff development. This whole report was communicated and presented to families in the fall at Martin Center. So many of you may have been present there. So if you turn to your executive summary on pages 20 through 22, you'll see that they have a variety of different recommendations. And while all of these recommendations are critical to take action for, we have chosen some to take immediate action with, and that would be identification, service delivery, and instruction. So currently we have a district team and we're developing appropriate methodology to identify gifted learners, including our underrepresented groups. We know as a district that we have gifted learners that are not being identified, and we need to make sure that we're identifying learners in every school. 2 years ago, we changed and we had our encore teachers go to every elementary and middle school, where in the past that didn't happen. So that should certainly help. But we have a district team that is looking at that. Currently, the identification process, there's 2 ways to be identified for gifted services. You can go through a screening that happens as a group. A general ed teacher will make that recommendation. We use the COGAP. And then you can also go through the special ed side, where a psychologist would test you for intellectually giftedness. Okay, so we have kind of 2 different ways to encore services now, so we want to streamline that better. We're also very pleased for our encore teachers. They will be trained in 2 weeks on project-based learning. We have an expert coming in who is an expert in gifted services and project-based learning. So all of our encore teachers will go through this 3-day training. So when they are doing pull-out, they will be using that project-based learning approach. This year, we've also given our encore teachers dedicated time for collaboration in their schools so they can work with their gen ed teacher, so we can make sure that our gifted students are receiving gifted education all day, every day, and not just in a pull-out. The Common Core and academic rigor certainly going to help us with our gifted students, and that's being addressed in our district strategic plan. As we move forward with our changes in our gifted services, we're going to bring in a lot of parent focus groups to help us write these policies and procedures. In addition, we've had some schools, and one is actually here tonight, gonna put you on the spot, that heard about this evaluation, read the evaluation, came to the night, and they wanted to be early adopters in really changing what's happening with their gifted learners. So we are utilizing a hybrid approach with a handful of schools, and what that's going to look like, it's going to be both pull-out and also grouping for differentiation. So we're going to take 6 to 8 gifted learners and put them in the same class for reading, language arts, and math. The gifted specialist will work specifically with that gen ed teacher, and then also pull-out will occur. What will look very differently is that the pull-out needs to have a clear alignment to what's happening in the classrooms. Okay, it can't be a completely separate lesson. It needs to be aligned to what's happening in that classroom. So that's starting this semester, so I look forward in April when we do a work group together that we'll be able to share more things that are happening with that hybrid approach. Our goal is for these schools that are taking on this approach now to work collaboratively with our other schools as they move towards this approach. Our challenges with gifted education, we want more teachers who are certified in gifted. We are working with 2 local colleges and universities to provide a collaboration between metro schools and these universities so our teachers have that opportunity to get that certification. Again, and it's building the capacity in our teachers, so all of our teachers can meet the needs of all of our diverse learners every day. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. DePriest, and she will be speaking to us about the social emotional learning.
Good evening. Good evening. How are you? I'm taking the 3rd portion of her presentation to kind of update you about social emotional learning, and I know that we spoke to you at the first board retreat, but I know that as you have heard reports from other TLGs, you can already recognize that social emotional learning is a priority for our school system, and that's because our goal is to educate the whole child and not just focus strictly on academics. There's a large body of information that tells us that students with strong SEL, I'm just going to go ahead and call it SEL, skills have better outcomes after they leave high school. They actually do better in the work field and in their personal relationships. And we know that students who participate with SEL programs, these are the programs that, I don't know how to get to, you left me. That address these 5 competency areas actually have higher academic scores, higher standardized test scores, and really have a better attitude towards schools. We also know that these competencies help our teachers become more resilient and able to deal with the challenges of schools. So our long-range goal with the social emotional learning is to really embed these core competencies into all of our district initiatives. And we want it to not be just an add-on. Social emotional learning is not a thing. It is something that we embed throughout our day and throughout all of our practices, because it is something that we truly value. We've been fortunate to receive grant funding from the Novo Foundation, who have given us a 3-year grant to help us move forward with our endeavor. And we are starting with our elementary schools this year and rolling out an evidence-based curriculum, which you all approved tonight. Thank you. But we're really excited about it because we know that we can start our day for our children in a positive way. And it is not an add-on, and it ties very well into the academics of the school. Some of the schools already have components of this curriculum called the morning meeting. And they've been doing it for several years, but we're really excited that we're able to take the next step because of the Novo Foundation. The middle schools are actually starting this week with their rollout for our high school principals, and we're going to be working with coaches in that area. And our high schools are working very carefully with us to make sure that the academy model is closely aligned to these competencies, and that we're really taking every opportunity to embed the social emotional learning competencies into all of those activities. We're looking at professional development throughout our district. We worked carefully with Susan Thompson when she came on board to make sure that we're looking at what we present to our teachers, but not just to teachers, to our food service workers and our bus drivers, so that they can develop some of these strengths. And an example would be relationship building, which is one of the core competencies. Sometimes I think we don't realize the impact each of us really has with our children. So we're real excited about moving in that direction. Tonight, I want to recognize Kyla Kringle, who just joined us very recently, who is our new Director of Social and Emotional Learning, if you can stand up. And Dr. Pamela Randall, who is here from Chicago. She is a CASEL consultant, the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning. And if you would stand up, Dr. Randall. And CASEL actually sends these 2 consultants to, I don't think the other one is his. Okay. But we have 2 consultants who come in every month, and they work with us, and they look at what we're doing, and they help us with our planning, and they ask very good questions and try to make sure that what we're doing is really, aligned with the areas that we know through the evidence will really be beneficial to our children. Thanks. And we're happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Ms. Behrings?
I just want to say that it's so exciting for this district to not only be bringing in our students with disabilities, but also our gifted students into the Gen Ed, because we know that students learn from each other. And when they're all in that environment together, they all have such potential to learn from one another. I suspect that the social emotional learning do you guys draw on the amygdala in the brain? And the amygdala in the brain is, it's an emotional center. And everything that we do is attached, we have attached to it an emotion. And so therefore, when we take into consideration social emotional learning, we are helping children to stay in school and to love school, because we're training our teachers how to access this research with the brain to make learning fun, to make learning meaningful, and to make children feel like they can succeed. So, yes.
Yeah, that's exactly right, because we know that when an environment is very positive and well managed and our kids want to be there, that they are really becoming connected to school, and that connectivity is a very strong indicator of attachment and all of those good things that tie into graduation.
Yes. And could you talk just a minute? I've heard so many teachers talk about how excited they are about the morning meetings. Could you just give us an overview?
Yeah, and I'm going to let Kyla come up, because she's the queen of morning meetings. She really is. She's been doing this for quite a few years.
Good evening. So for morning meeting, there are 4 parts to it. It starts with a news and announcement. So as students walk into the classroom, there's something on the board, a directive telling them what they need to be doing. And then the group comes together and they do a greeting every day. And the greeting is really essential part of the classroom because we find that so many times a lot of our students just don't know each other in the classroom and, oh, she or he, instead of using each other's names, but really getting to know each other and building that classroom community. The third part is having everybody in the classroom share something, and a lot of times it refers back to the news and announcements. What was on the board, whether they had to write something or do something in their journal, a math problem, they come back as a group and share it. And then the fourth part is the activity, and that's the fun piece that you were mentioning, where students are able to get up, have a voice, participate, move around, and then sit down. And this can also be seen and tied into the Common Core academic piece. This can be a very academic activity. We've seen a lot of it. For example, if we're starting to talk about what is a simile, that's what the students could be writing in their journal. They share it, and then they may do an I have, who has sharing activity on different similes.
Ms. Shepherd?
Thank you for the information. Again, even though we heard from you just recently, the information tonight was great. And I wondered as to, I think you stated one of your challenges was training the teachers, the gen ed teachers, incorporating those. How exactly are you approaching that?
Yeah, because we don't want it to be perceived as an add-on with,
right,
for teachers. But let me give the example of the Common Core standards, because we actually presented this and worked with our principals on this activity at the Principal Leadership Institute last summer. But we took we have the Common Core standard, but we look at these 5 areas such as self-management or responsible decision making. And so when we develop our lesson plans, we look at the competencies and think, that one activity really can embed responsible decision making. So I think one of the examples was in a writing activity. Well, how could you tie responsible decision making as perhaps a topic with that activity? So you're not only addressing the Common Core standard, but you are also helping with these competencies. The other thing we're doing is we're working with the project-based learning initiative, and the project-based learning is a wonderful strategy, but that doesn't mean kids come ready to understand all of those activities, and that's a great way that we are addressing it. And Kyla has actually met with the high school team and the Buck Institute so that we can make sure that all of our training looks at these areas, all of our professional development. Another example we're doing that embeds it is the COMP training, the classroom organization and management training. And it's a great delivery by itself, but to go back, and we went back and looked at that training and thought, well, what are some more examples that we could tie into self-awareness, what I know about myself, or self-management. That's, COMP is really about management of students, but what could we do within that training to help kids, manage their own behavior? So it's not seen as something totally separate that we're trying to work with our kids on.
Do several of the classrooms still use the paraprofessionals, mostly on the elementary level?
Do they use the
paraprofessionals still? Do they still use them?
I don't think I understood the question.
Several of the I visited several of the elementary classrooms, and they were using the paraprofessionals. Do they still use them?
Yes,
yeah.
All right. In elementary, middle, and high school.
All 3 tiers. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Ms. Kim.
Yeah, thank you. A couple broad comments and then a question, I think just one observation. But the first comment is I love this. This report was amazing. Amazing for a couple different reasons, because it suggests that we care about continuous improvement and figuring out where we're great and where our warts are, and that's the road to then making everything great. So I loved it for that reason. Then also because of the richness of the qualitative and quantitative data. So huge kudos to everyone who was involved in making this happen. So that's one comment. The other comment was, I noticed, you noted some of the areas that you want to zero in on based on the findings. And as I was reading through the report, a couple things popped in particular for me. I mean, as one just obsessed with the quality of teaching and learning that's happening, at the classroom level, that actual engagement with the student and the teacher between the two, and then collectively as a group. My eye then naturally went to the key findings around curriculum, which I know that you said is an area of focus. It talked about the lack of evidence around acceleration, depth, advanced content being implemented, and then this notion of differentiation, challenge, and rigor that needs to go up. So I would love to, so here's my now question. Is that, are you thinking, when you think about tackling something as big and important as that, those are big things, like, increasing rigor, increasing broader excellence, making sure that there's real acceleration and depth that's reaching all of our students. Are you thinking about that as something to be tackled at a teacher-to-teacher level? Or are you thinking about a centralized group that's tackling that so that then it can be farmed out to everyone? Or how are you thinking about how to tackle that very big?
I think a lot of that's going to come through our Common Core training, because we need to start in what's exactly happening in that gen ed classroom, and we need to make sure it's rigorous for all. So we've got to start there, and then we've got to work teacher to teacher. I think with our gifted specialists, and Victoria, if you want to come up and add anything too, to make sure that, that's why we like this idea of the hybrid model, where we're clustering a group of 6 to 8 gifted students in a classroom together, so we can really differentiate within that classroom. But it is going to take a lot of professional learning. But I also just talking to Lisa Wilshire and working with the strategic plan and developing personalized learning plans for every student, that's going to help us get there too. So do you want to add anything, Victoria? This is Dr. Victoria Greer, and she's our Director of Instruction for the Department of Exceptional Education.
What we have learned with professional learning with teachers, we've trained so many teachers over the last few years, but what we've delved down and learned is that they learn better from one another, and they accept it better when it comes from one another. So one of the thoughts that we've had is, and we've done this with some of the other pieces that we've been working on, is pulling together core teacher groups and begin with them. And we train them, and then they become teacher leaders in that area, and then that's how we build it out. And so that's one of the plans for this piece, where it concerns the curriculum and also the delivery of instruction.
Got it. And then just one final, just sort of general observation is that, once I completed reading it and then I stared at the dashboard, I was trying to figure out, well, is just alignment? Because in theory, the findings from this should in fact influence then the content of the dashboard and what we're holding ourselves accountable to and what we're shining a big light on. And it wasn't 100% clear to me that there was complete alignment. I also may be missing something, but I wanted to figure out how you think about that, presuming that the dashboard itself is driving.
And on the dashboard, we chose those key components that we were doing immediately, but I think that's a very good suggestion that we kind of plan out on the dashboard exactly what's going to happen year for year. Because on the dashboard, are you referring to this?
Yeah.
Okay. We spoke specifically about the district committee that's working on how to identify our gifted learners and about our early adopter schools. So I think that's great feedback that we can put more into that dashboard for that.
Great.
And let's just have one quick question. You talked about the hybrid approach. How many early adopter schools are you looking at right now?
We currently four.
You have 4?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And can you name those schools?
Mm-hmm. IT Cresswell. Do you want to come up and talk about what you're going to do at your school? Not to put you on the spot. Meigs, Andrew Jackson, and Aiken. Those are the 4 schools. The instructional leaders in those buildings came to us. They want to be part of it. And they already didn't have to revamp all the children's schedules in that building, because they already had type of cluster approach where they had 6 to 8 students in a gen ed classroom that are identified as gifted.
Okay, I missed one. IT Cresswell, Meigs, Andrew Jackson, and which other?
Aiken.
Aiken, thank you.
Thank you.
That's okay. So our current plan, as we're developing it together, I'm from IT Crestwell, I'm Ted McCrae, I'm the principal there. And our goal is we already have our students clustered and being serviced to a certain extent. And this Encore teacher, which we're really excited to have come on board today, is going to begin working initially with the students, but also with the teachers, and talking to the teachers about what individual needs those students have and how those can be addressed on a regular basis. Those teachers are going to be, because the students are clustered in their classes and they're already working together as a team, they're going to begin a series of professional development learning opportunities to train themselves on how to, well, not train themselves, but to be trained on how to continue to meet those needs on a regular basis. So our Encore teacher is really going to serve as a catalyst to drive gifted education throughout the school and to build the professional capacity of all the teachers in our building. That's the goal right now.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you so much. It was a great presentation.
Okay. Thank you.
Register.
Thanks, Debbie. Good job.
Thank you.
The next item on my director's report will be a very short report. We included in your packet about a 3-page report on lessons learned from the school option process. This report has just been completed, and I want to use it as an opportunity to brag on our student assignment group, or our pupil assignment task force group. Chris Weber and Chris, stand up, and Fred and everyone else who's helped us and the communications staff in trying to make our selection process, our options process, our choice process much more user-friendly. In terms of numbers, we had this fall 15,752 applications for choice schools. That's about 7,500 children, give or take 500 or 1,000, because each family will make one or more choices for their children. 70% of our applications this year were online, compared to 29% last year. That's a great change for us, and much greater opportunity, longer opportunity for parents to make application in this process. We did include for you in your packet an online application survey result where parents, we had about 800 parents respond to our survey about ease of application, did it work well, how's that going, and we felt like we had very good response to that. Chris, I'm going to ask you to walk up to the front as I talk and just say a quick word about how this process went this fall, and for me to say thanks to you and your staff for a great job this fall.
Well, thank you.
I know you're up to your eyeballs in it right now, so you might advise the board on where you are right now.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much. And it wouldn't be possible without collaboration from many departments internally, from communications and Meredith Libby, from Paul Changus, just many people internally in our staff, as well as hearing from parents and principals. We really met with principals to help shape and form the process. After looking back now over November to this point, really this online website and the ease of application is really improved it for parents, as well as the communications and how we've reduced the number of applications. We literally took 5 to 7, however you might want to count the different types of paper applications, and consolidated it into one paper application that's now in a booklet, like an information packet, that was distributed out to all students. And my appreciation goes out to Metro Library Services too. In the whole month of November, they hosted a special desktop for school options. Library Services was trained on this process to help inform parents as well. So there's just been many players in it. As you say, we're in the middle of the process now. The applications have went well, and now we're about to move into the phase where we're about to see another sense of efficiency, because by us having parents prioritize their options, we're now going to give one acceptance to the highest possible outcome, but they're going to be able to remain on wait lists for schools higher than that. So this is going to be a change, and we're going to move into this second phase. But this means that students will be placed in schools earlier. We expect for there to be less movement on wait lists, so parents will know results quicker. And with all of this, there's going to come more and more questions from the community, because this kind of has been a learning process for everybody. This Saturday is the Selection Day event, and so we're going to be at Martin Center from 9 to 12. We encourage parents to come and ask questions and learn the results for where they get placed in the selection process. However, because of the process change, on Saturday morning, all of the results are going to be published online. The actual placement of students is taking place Thursday morning, and then on Saturday morning, everything is going to be publicized. So you can go to the Metro Schools website and see all placements immediately Saturday morning at 9 o'clock. And we have a new website that's going to be available, released on Saturday, where you can log in and see for your individualized student the outcome for all the schools that you applied. And including, I'm just slightly hesitant on this because we're pushing this out a couple weeks earlier than we actually anticipated. But we anticipate on Saturday, when you look up your results online, you can begin immediately returning your acceptance letter online. So while we're going to mail the acceptance letters in a couple weeks, we're expecting that if everything progresses as we are right now, that as early as Saturday you can see your results and start to accept your seats immediately online, which will again be an improved process for parents.
Thanks. May I ask if there are any questions of Chris?
I do have a question.
Sure.
Sorry. So when they can make their selection online, or they can see online the schools to which they've been selected, and then they can make their selection. Is there a possibility where they could maybe revisit a school if they're undecided as between one or two and they really want to revisit the school prior to making that decision?
There are walkthrough Tuesday dates, like we had walkthrough Tuesday dates in November. Right. There are dates also in January. Okay. So later in January, there's scheduled dates where all the optional schools will be open for parents to come. We encourage parents to call ahead. Right. Now, what's critically different from in years past, parents are only going to be placed into one school, being the highest priority that they got into. Okay. So parents aren't going to be deliberating at this point between, do I want school A or school B, or is that going to take me off school C's wait list? They're getting the highest possible outcome that we can on that given date, and then they are going to have to return an acceptance letter for that school as always, but they'll be able to do that online or return the paper form.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question as well. Selection day, you said that the results will be available online starting that morning.
Yes.
So if parents can get the information online, what will be available to them at the Martin Center? Will there be people available to answer questions?
Yes.
Who will be there?
There will be people there to answer questions. We'll help them look up and see their results. We'll help them return their acceptance letters and print acceptance letters, answer questions. However, there's not necessarily a need. I wouldn't just say, hey, parent, you need to come on Saturday, but we're here for parents. We're going to be there for them, and this is going to be a new process, a new day on Saturday, and it's going to take this event on Saturday to kind of shape and form and figure out, do we really, what kind of event does this need to evolve into for future years? But we're going to be there to answer questions and return acceptance letters and just help walk parents through the whole process on Saturday if they need help.
What's the deadline on returning acceptance letters?
I believe it's February. I don't know the exact date, but it's in early February. Yeah, the letters go out, I believe, January 23rd, 2 weeks from this coming up Wednesday. And then, so they'll be due back, I believe, in like 10 days, early February.
Okay, and just for clarity's sake, if they see that their selection online on Saturday, all hopes that all things go well, they can accept at that point, but they will also receive in the mail an acceptance letter?
Yes.
So they will only have to accept one time?
That's right.
Okay.
So our expectations is that if you log on the website and you're like, hooray, I got in the school I wanted, then the website's going to show you your priorities, the school you got in, or where you fall on a wait list for any school higher than that. It's going to notify you you've been selected, but you need to accept this seat by the given deadline.
Right.
Then there'll be a button on the bottom that says accept seat to Hillsborough High School if that's the school. When they do that, then it will give them a confirmation number, and they return to the page and it says you've now accepted your seat, you're in Hillsborough. Okay? If they accept their seat in Hillsborough, we don't intend to mail them another acceptance letter because that might confuse them that we didn't first get that.
Right.
But for anybody who hasn't already replied online, then we will. Now, there'll be a little bit of a time lag between how do we do that mail merge and people accepting during a couple day or overlap, but that's our anticipation, is not to send them a letter if they've already accepted it online.
Okay, 2 more questions. This is just for clarity's sake. Will there be a deadline for accepting online? Because I know you don't want that lag time between when the mail goes out.
There won't be a deadline for the deadline for accepting online will be the same deadline for accepting the paper letter.
Okay.
So I mean the worst possible, the confusion might be if we're mailing letters on Wednesday and we do the mail merge on Monday to get them out Wednesday, but you go online and you accept your seat Monday, you might still get a letter in the mail. Okay. But that doesn't mean you have to return it because you log on the website, you're there. There might be just that tad bit of confusion for parents that did you really get it or not, but they'll have the same deadline.
Last question, and I think most importantly, will there be someone available on Saturday to answer phone calls? Because everybody may not come to the Martin Center, and those who are looking online at home may want to call and talk to somebody.
The customer service center, as I understand, is expecting to be open on Monday, normal operating hours on Monday, to take phone calls and questions. There wouldn't be a time-sensitive thing to say, I've got to get my question between Saturday and Monday. We'll be there in person, but there isn't really like a phone bank designed to take questions on that Saturday.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes. Dr. Brandon?
If a parent does accept online, is there a confirmation
Yes, ma'am. Yes. So when you accept online, first off, when you say, I want to accept Hillsborough, then it says, look, you're accepting Hillsborough. Recognize if you're already in Hume Fogg or some out-of-zone placement, this is going to supersede that. You say, yeah, I want Hillsborough. Then it's going to give you a confirmation number. And it shows you a screen with your confirmation number, your child's name, and the school you've been placed in. And then also, if you've had an email address associated with that application, which we're strongly encouraging people to apply online with emails, or even on paper, give us your email, then you'll also receive an email confirmation as a receipt, or you can print that page.
Yes, but it's okay. It's okay. Any other questions? And you thought this was going to be the short one.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris. Again, we appreciate the work that you folks have done to get us to this point with this. The last topic of my report is one that's a very important topic across our country, and that deals with school safety issues. I'm going to ask Fred and Tony to come up to the mic, and Chris Henson may want to join or at least speak from there about facilities issues with this. A number of board members have asked the question, well, what are we doing? What are we doing in MNPS in reaction to the crisis, the tragedy in Connecticut, and the shooting at the schools in Newtown, and we have had a break where many parents and students have been away, and we think it's appropriate to give a report now. There has been quite a bit of activity. I'll say that the activity hasn't just started with the crisis. There's been a lot of work going on in our district over time, and I'll ask Tony and Fred to go back and give us a little bit of a report on that. Let me say this about Metropolitan Nashville Public Schools, though, and school safety in general. We're an urban school system. We're a city school system. Security is very important to us, and it has been. And I think when you look at where we are in MNPS, in our approximately 150 schools and sites, we're very well developed. We have good procedures and we have good safety in place. For example, these men can break it down, but we have school resource officers that number almost 100, thanks to Metropolitan Government, Mayor Dean, the police department, but a total staff of about 200 people in our school system who work on school safety and security and campus supervision. So, and we've been paying very, very good attention to that over the last few years as we've developed a program. When a crisis like this happens, the first reaction, the immediate reaction is, let me make sure we're doing things the right way. Let me make sure that in our many schools and with our many staff members that we are following procedures. And so the call went out the next morning. The directives went out the next day to all of our principals, to all of our schools, to really tighten up, to make sure to review your security procedures and make sure that things are in order in your schools. And we've done that. In fact, over the holidays, Fred and Tony created some professional development where all of our administrators received online training over the holidays and actually did a refresher or an update on school security issues. And we're continuing that conversation this Thursday in our general staff meeting with our principals. So that we have things in place. Are we perfect? No. Can we do more? The answer is yes. And so we've really been analyzing where we are and looking at what we need to do and how to set a clear, high standard in all of our schools in terms of school security. Are our schools secure from exterior access? Are we doing the right things in all of our schools? Are we meeting those standards in all of our schools? And I don't think I've stolen any thunder, but I want to turn it over to Tony and Fred, who have spent a great deal of time, in fact, almost full time since this disaster occurred on this particular issue, addressing these concerns. And Tony, I think you start, is that correct?
No, actually Fred
Fred starts. Sorry, Fred.
No, I'll pick up where you left off. It's really important to note that we didn't just start planning for school safety in December. This has been ongoing, and it takes multiple forms. One is the development and the implementation and the building of our physical plants, our school buildings. New designs are different than original school designs. Originally, schools were designed for fast egress in case of fire. So we had doors in all classrooms and multiple exits. In recent years, the architecture is changing to reflect additional concerns about school security and safety. So that has been ongoing in the design and construction of our new buildings. In addition, all of our schools have secure access with either an electronic buzz-in system or a campus security person in the entryway of the school to greet visitors, so that visitors have to identify themselves before they're admitted. I gave Chris a microphone and asked him if he'd speak just a minute to where we are with our physical plant planning and the security vestibules that are being designed on the entryway of schools.
And we discussed this somewhat earlier this afternoon in the board's Capital Needs Committee meeting. Several years ago, the school district began looking at securing front entrances to schools. And the best way to do that, based upon best practices, would be to have a double set of doors where the second set lock from the exterior entrance, which guides individuals into the school office so that they can sign into the school office and then be directed to wherever they, or escorted to be wherever they need to go. Of course, whenever we renovate a new building, we go ahead and take care of the front entrance as well as all other security concerns that may exist in the building. And as Fred just mentioned, when we build new schools, we work with the architects to make sure we're using the most current standards and design as it relates to safety and security. One thing that we are looking at doing at this point, and I've discussed this with Tony Majors, we're going to be looking at some of our current capital funding to see what we may be able to redirect to go ahead and accelerate some of the things that we've already planned to do, we're planning to do. We've included, as I said, over the last several years, capital funding for the security vestibules in schools, for additional closed-circuit cameras in schools, securing exterior doors, etc. We're going to be looking at what the current needs are and to see if we can't accelerate some of this work that needs to be done with some of our current capital funding by reallocating and redirecting some of that. So once we're able to look at cost estimates and pull together a large listing, a comprehensive listing to develop some consistency from school to school relating to what security measures they have in place.
In addition to our existing plans, we have very good relationships with Metro Police Department and Office of Emergency Management. There are several of us that are members of the Office of Emergency Management and stay in communication with them for our, I guess you'd say, more generic kinds of emergencies that we face, such as weather emergencies and those sort of things, where the school system is a very strong partner with Office of Emergency Management. If we need to have a large-scale evacuation in Davidson County like we did in May of 2010 during the flood, they depend upon the school system and our school buses to provide that public evacuation support. So we are close partners with Office of Emergency Management and the police department and meet regularly with them. We did meet with the police department prior to the winter break and discussed a review of our procedures. We're having some follow-up sessions, and we are making certain that the plans that are reviewed every summer are current and that all of our technical background kinds of things that we have that I won't get specific about are operational and working. One of the things that we are doing is, as Chris mentioned, speeding up and reallocating some of our energy to plans that we already had in place, and Tony's going to get specific about some of those. But a key one is to standardize across the district a lot of our safety procedures. We have, in the past, allowed schools some leeway in the development of safety procedures, such as the different codes that they might use in their schools for fire or evacuation or lockdown. What we're going to do is standardize that across the district. Because of our high mobility rate, it's important that the safety signals that students would hear need to be standardized in the same all across the district. So that is an initiative that we are taking up right now. I will mention that while we do have a lot of plans and we have a lot of data and information available to both us and the police department, we purposely won't share specific details about some of our plans, and that's just to keep things extra safe. So I'll let Tony talk about specifics.
All right, thank you, Fred. As Dr. Richardson and Fred have already mentioned, we already work on security protocols annually, and it's an ongoing process. We're always evaluating our policies and our procedures. Each year by law, each principal is required to submit a new crisis plan, and that is to be evaluated. Metro PD also evaluates those crisis plans as well as school security. So it's not something that they create a plan, it sits for 3 or 4 years. It's an ongoing assessment, and those changes are made to update staffing and as well as protocols. we've already made plans to standardize that, as Fred mentioned, with standard and common coding. That way we're in line with the Office of Emergency Management and other emergency management authorities to make sure that we are doing the same things that they would do so that our communication is exactly the same. Since the Sandy Hook shooting, as Dr. Register mentioned, that email actually went out beginning the first phase of communications to principals at 11 o'clock that morning. So principals are immediately notified to secure their entrances, make plans and provisions to review security procedures, and to meet with all staff regarding emergency protocols upon return on Monday. So there was no time lapse. We wanted to make sure our principals and our school staffs were quickly informed and really brought up to speed on their emergency procedures. The 4 areas that Dr. Register mentioned in terms of our 4 areas of priority since the Sandy Hook shooting, we've actually spent the time with school security, maintenance and operations, and police department evaluating and assessing our existing protocols in our buildings. So we have identified 4 areas, as Fred also mentioned, that we want to standardize and expedite, and hopefully, as Chris mentioned, utilizing some reallocation of some capital funds to do so. The first is our external security. That's the need to maintain secure entrances to all of our schools, and we are standardizing our protocols to include locking systems as well as visitor communication devices that help to improve the quality of our entries and also standardize that across all schools. Employee identification. All MNPS and GCA custodial services are now going to be required to wear IDs. And Fred is going to show you an example of that in just a minute and speak to that a little bit more. But the ID badges are being created based on school color, and now we're going to make sure that all of our elementary schools have the ID badges as well. And Fred, if you want to go ahead and talk about the badges.
This was a project that actually started a year ago when we have changed the ID system for our high schools and middle schools. Prior to last year, we had a kind of a fragmented identification badge system for our schools. We had different devices and different machines, and every school was kind of on its own. So Mike Law in the IT department took the task, and it was a summer's-long task, of creating an enterprise-wide, a district-wide ID system that standardizes the badges, the look of the badges, the location of the data on the badges, and IDs them with the student number barcoded across the bottom of the ID badge. We rolled that out beginning last year to all middle schools and high schools with the expectation that all students and staff would wear those badges in the schools. We had some special coding on the badges, and of course I got up here without a high school one. Even from this distance you can probably see the orange line across the top. So what we did was standardize the different color code across the top for the grade that the students are in. So if you had a senior in the freshman hallway, it would stand out because of the color. This particular badge, and that's Mike's picture right there, is what a contractor badge will look like under the new system. It has an orange stripe across the top. We will have badges for visitors. As they check into the office, they can put their badge number and turn it back in when they leave, or we'll go find it. So this is an initiative that has been underway. We've now fast-tracked that, and we'll have, if everything works well, by next week, we'll be in elementary schools taking pictures of staff members and producing those badges so that all MNPS employees will be badged and will be required by a new policy that Ramona Carr is writing to wear those badges while at work and on MNPS property. This is an identification process that we were going to implement district-wide. We were moving slowly with it because of resources that were available. What we've done is pool some resources and sped up that process. So that will be beginning next week. We don't exactly know how long it's going to take. We ballpark 4 to 5 weeks to get the entire district done, but we are starting that next week.
And our third area of priority is interior door security. We're in the process of developing a plan to install intruder locks on all classroom doors, and those are doors that just have locking mechanisms on both sides, interior and exterior. The fourth and last area of priority would be our emergency exit identification. We want to bring our emergency exit in line with OEM and their standards, so that we have specified entrances and exits for visitors, teachers, as well as evacuation routes. So those are our 4 areas of priority. Dr. Register mentioned the training for principals and assistant principals. Over the holidays, all principals, assistant principals, as well as central office staff that will function in schools were required to complete 2 training courses offered by FEMA. The courses basically put our actions and our training in line with the National Incident Management System, which is the federally adopted emergency management protocol for all emergency agencies. So they have taken the training. One was an introduction, and one was very specific to school incident command. And all principals will be required to have had that training completed by this Thursday. And we will have that information cataloged. Those principals will be registered as having the federal certification. And now we'll entertain any questions.
Questions?
Questions?
Ms. Berry?
First of all, I want to thank Dr. Register for bringing this opportunity to talk about safety today. I think it's on our minds as a board, and it's certainly on the minds of our viewing audience and parents in this district. In terms of cameras, I know that some schools are doing well with the number of cameras for their outside entrances, and others are a little behind. How quickly can we get the number of cameras that are needed to be sure that our buildings are safe?
Well, currently we have over 1,300 cameras in existence in our school system. Now, there are 3 issues that we do have to resolve. Number 1 is the availability of inventory. There is a lag and a lack of access to some of the hardware that we need. The second, of course, is the capital funds. We are looking at, that was not on our 4 priorities, but that is a little bit lower down on the list, but we are looking at a standard security package for cameras as well as a standard security system for cameras. So that way, that all schools will have a minimum expectation for video surveillance coverage, and our goal is to move to a digital format as opposed to an analog. But again, that is a funding request, and then even if we have the funds and then if we have the inventory, the next barrier is the ability to have the products installed, because we do contract out the services for installation, and it would be, of course, dependent upon the availability of their providers to get the service or get the materials installed.
Most of our schools have what we call airphones, which are when you walk up to the door and you push the button, there's a little camera and they can see you. Mm-hmm. Our priority is to get that device in all of our schools.
How close are we?
That is priority 1 on the list that we just discussed. Our entryway security, mm-hmm. That is priority 1. Mm-hmm. So that is something that we can do that's not directly tied to the larger security system video.
And then on the monitors on the inside of the building that reveal what's going on with our cameras, are those monitors, is that information available only in one area, or is it available in like on computer screens?
That is dependent upon the type of system. The analog system, traditionally, they will only be housed in the SRO or the administrator's office. Through the digital system, it is you can access the content via the computer with the appropriate password.
Okay. And I'm really pleased. I've heard several principals talk about how good the training was that they got over these last few weeks of the FEMA training. So thank you.
I've got to say, we heard a few complaints about that too, but
more than one.
But everybody has it.
Any other questions? I have just one comment. There has been a lot of conversation about school safety and security. It is unfortunate that we had to lose so many young lives for us to talk about it with such urgency. I will say, I have had my shares, I'm sure other board members have, of people who have asked, what are we going to do about it? I'll share this quick story with you because I think it's relative to this conversation. A coworker said to me the Monday after the school shootings, so when are you going to get armed guards in all your schools? And my response was, that has not been discussed. Now, let me ask you, are you willing to have a tax increase to pay for the armed guards that it is going to take to go into every single school? And his reply was, what do you mean? They're not free. We have, you know, the number of schools that we have just in Metro Davidson County would shock you that the cost that it would take to put those armed guards in schools. Let's consider, you know, multiplying that by every school district in the country, and then we start to get into a really extreme amount of funding that we just don't have right now. So my final comment to him was, I, like you, understand that you want every single child in our schools to be safe. I want that more than anything else in the world. But we have to be concise, and we have to be very clear, and we have to be very proactive in the actions that we take going forward. We can't just hit the gavel and make a decision and say, okay, now our schools are safe. It doesn't happen that way. So we need to make sure that that every parent, every teacher, and every student understands that while you may not see what we're doing, we continue to work on school safety, and it's not something that just happened, especially for Metro. I've tried to get into a few schools myself. I've got a badge, and I couldn't get in. So I feel really good about what we've got going on right now, and I'm very, very glad to hear that we are continuing in those efforts. And I think it'll make a lot of our parents understand and know that it is not something that we just decided to do. So thank you very, very much for your presentation tonight. It is very much appreciated.
One other point, Commissioner Huffman has scheduled a statewide conference, a school safety summit for January the 29th in Williamson County. I know that Dr. Register, Fred, and myself will be attending, and I'm certain that a lot of the questions that you and all of us have been receiving will be discussed at that summit, and then there'll be more information released, you know, more pertinent to what the state's plans are moving forward.
Thank you again.
Thanks, ma'am. Madam Chair, that concludes my report for the evening.
Fantastic. We will move on to committee reports. Dr. Brannon, naming of schools.
Yes, just to give the board a little history of an issue that has been before our naming committee for about a year. In July of 2006, the board that none of us were members of voted to name the field at Overton in honor of band director Joanne Hood. The ceremony did not take place until October of 2011. Later that month, a community group requested that the board withdraw the naming of the field because it had been thought that the field had been named after Nick Koutras, who was a coach at Overton. That was in 1983. A review of the board minutes, however, indicated that the field was not named after Nick Koutras, only the stadium. Members of the community were then given an opportunity to come to a resolution that's between the band community and the football community. And no decision could be agreeable to both parties. So our naming committee met on December the 20th, and that committee was recomprised after July, and the members were Joe Edgens, Ann Shepard, and Jill Spearing, because all of the other members were no longer part of the board. The naming committee made the decision that no changes in the naming of the Joanne Hood Field would take place at this time for Overton. The stadium still remains the Nick Koutras Stadium. The committee left the option open for community members to still try to come to some agreeable decision, and at which time they may come back to the board and offer that solution. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Shepard?
We had a meeting last Friday morning at dark 100 hours at 7 a.m. at the Martin Center
for the Youth Safety
for the Youth Safety Summit, right? Again, I'd like to remind our viewing audience to mark your calendars for Saturday, April the 6th. We will have our third annual Youth Safety Summit on that day. Registration will be at 8:30. It'll probably run till around noon. Again, Craig Scott will be our featured speaker from Rachel's Challenge. And it promises to be a very good event, and it is open to children of all ages and parents as well. We're still working on a location that's still to be determined, but I look forward to seeing a lot of people from the community there. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Shepherd. And I don't have a board chair's report, so we will move right into announcements. Start with Dr. Brandon. Ms. Spearing.
Yes. On February the 5th, Ms. Kim and I are going to conduct a community meeting at Dan Mills Elementary, and that's going to be at 6 o'clock. And I also wanted to say congratulations to all those who graduated before Christmas. The Academy, the students from the Academy at Opera Mills, Hickory Hollow, and Old Cockrell. And Dr. Register, I don't know if we have a number about the number of students that included.
I do not. But
it's over 100, wasn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Yes. Congratulations to those students. Thank you.
Ms. Kim?
She covered me.
Ms. Shepherd?
One announcement, just as a reminder for our viewing audience, this coming Thursday night on the 10th, Deloitte will be conducting the FAFSA night, and we will have training beginning at 4:30. We have pizza for all the trainers and parents and their families at 5 o'clock. The actual application process will start at 5:30. Each volunteer helps between 2 and 3 families go through the application process. We have door prizes. It's a really fun night, so I encourage everyone in the community to come out and witness this.
Location?
At McGavick High School.
Mr. Hayes.
Thank you. A couple of announcements. I guess with tonight's passing of the proposed capital budget, which included Waverly, Belmont as a potential new school in year one if funds allow that to happen. Mr. Pinkston and I hope in the next 30 to 60 days to reach out to folks in the community to hear input and thought about what they'd like to see in a school in that neighborhood. We both, and Will and I guess, our geographical political boundaries back up to each other in the schools on the border. It generally sits within the Hillsborough cluster, which is about 98% in my district. But since this was first proposed in committee a month or so ago and has been thought about through the fall, I've had a tremendous number of positive emails from parents who are expecting children, parents with children, alumni who attended the school both when it was a middle school and an elementary school. My bookkeeper, who's been with my company for 47 years, her best friend attended school there 40-something years ago, I guess, 50 years ago. And she was delighted to hear that we were thinking about this as a new elementary school. So I look forward to communicating with constituents about that further. And if you're interested in participating in the discussion about this idea of this location as a school, please email or call me. My contact information is on our website. And then second, Dr. Casey from Julia Green emailed me and invited me, but certainly other members of the board, council members, parents, friends, students, and teachers to view the Red River Nashville Beautiful Art Trucks, which feature finalists from the 3rd and 4th grade art programs who will have their art on the side of our trash collection trucks in the coming months. So Monday, January 14th, the truck will start at, there will be a truck at Glendale from 11 to 12, Julia Green 12:15 to 1:15, and Sylvan Park from 1:30 to 2:30. I hope I can make one of those and would encourage any of you guys, if you're out and about in the in the Hillsborough cluster to try to stop by and see a cool trash truck with art on the side. And the idea behind this is that students submit drawings focused on reducing their carbon footprint and keeping Nashville a beautiful city. So I think that's a great cause that we can all support. Thank you.
Ms. Brown?
I have a couple of announcements. The first announcement has to do with my work as the chair of the Advocacy Committee. The legislative session did start today, and I'm going to be calling a meeting of this committee in the coming weeks to discuss possible legislative items that we want to consider. Two very big items that are anticipated in the legislature this session are vouchers and statewide charter authorizer. This board has previously approved an anti-voucher resolution back in 2011, and that resolution still stands. But I will also be bringing an anti-state charter authorizer resolution before the board at our next meeting. And then, of course, the committee and the board can discuss other issues that might arise or that we might anticipate. And my second announcement is I am excited to announce that we are starting a partnership with Vanderbilt students at Peabody. These are all education students who are anticipating graduation in May, and they are going to be partnering with several West Nashville schools to study parent engagement and to give us an assessment of where we stand on this issue at a lot of our schools, and also figure out ways to drive more parent involvement in our schools. And so I think that's a really positive partnership to have. And if this first session, this little pilot session in the spring goes well, we could consider making this a larger initiative.
Great. Thank you. And I have a couple of announcements. As we speak, there was a meeting going on with CNAP, which is the Crossings Nashville Action Partnership in Hickory Hollow Mall. The discussion is pretty much going to center around what is going to happen with that mall, new stores moving in, how that is going to affect the Antioch, Cane Ridge, Priest Lake community. I'm sure I'll hear all about it soon. Also, on Thursday, 6 p.m., McGavock High School winter commencement exercises. That is always so exciting. So if any of you can make it to that event, please do so. You will not be disappointed. And this is my favorite thing to say because the students absolutely love it. Report cards will be issued January 15th. And let us not forget that we've got our next board work session is going to be January 23rd here in the
22nd.
22nd. I was testing. You passed. Board retreat, January 25th and 26th at Montgomery Bell Park. You will be receiving the information on that retreat very soon. Last thing on my list here is there will also be an Antioch Community and American Red Cross blood drive January 14th at the Crossings Event Center in Antioch from 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. And I think I have gone over all of my notes, and I think that is all that I can muster up right now. Any other announcements? Fantastic. Dr. Register, do you have anything? Ms. Frog?
This meeting's adjourned.